Rick de Yampert is a freelance writer, sitar player, artist, and lecturer on sacred and metaphysical subjects. He has been following a pagan path since the early 1990s. Please welcome.
Thank you.
Rick de Yampert.
It's okay that Tim left out my new passion and pursuit, jester. So, but you're forgiven, so next time. I wanted to just briefly trace some of the Samhain. It looks like Samhain, S-A-M-H-A-I-N. It's a Gaelic Celtic word. And one thing I've learned about the ancient Gaelic language, it's never pronounced how it looks. So, but the ancient pagan Celts of Northern and Western Europe, who are my ancestors, they held two annual fire festivals. Beltane around May 1st, and in Gaelic it's pronounced Beltinia, and Samhain around November 1st. They celebrated the return of the power of the sun in the spring, and the departure of the power of the sun in autumn. They were agrarian holidays. They were tied to the harvest and planting seasons. Some scholars say that Samhain was especially connected with cattle because they would have to be brought into the stables for the winter in order to survive. Samhain means summer's end. And in my pagan past, since getting on that in the early 90s, the phrase is, it's the thinning of the veil between this world and the other world. And I just, for the longest time, I was such a dummy. I thought that was just kind of arbitrary. And then at some point I realized it's everywhere we see. It's in the Northern Hemisphere, life is diminishing. The days are getting shorter, the trees are shedding their leaves, the plants stop growing. And in ancient times, this is very serious business. If they did not have enough food for the winter, it was a very dire thing. So they began to celebrate that in numerous ways to honor and to appease the powers or connect to the seasons to survive the winter. Around the 8th century, the Catholic Church moved its All Saints' Day from May to November 1st. And around AD 1000, the Church made November 2nd All Souls' Day, a day to honor the dead. Now, a number of scholars believe that the Catholic Church did that to overlay and appropriate the pagan celebrations that were happening at that time. So that's where, the day was called All Hallow Mass by the church. That was November 1st. And the previous day was called All Hallows Eve. Hallow means those who are honored and respected. So All Hallows Eve became Halloween. Mask and dressing up as jesters. Because it was a time of diminishment and death and dying, the people believed that the other world, the deceased and the departed, and whatever spirits are in the afterlife, that they could visit the earth. So masking, according to most scholars, began to happen because at this time of year, with the spirits roaming the night, while some would be the honored ancestors, they also weren't sure, so they would wear masks so that the spirits could not recognize them, just hedging their bets in case that's not Uncle Joe who's coming back. And I think that's plays into it a lot too. It's fear of the unknown, and it was a way of protecting oneself. Trick-or-treating The main theory is that during this time of year, the ancient Celtic people would leave food out to appease the spirits, and over time, humans being what we are, we wanted to get in on the action, so people began to dress as the unearthly beings, and like, oh, give us some foods and treats too. Now, all this is the short version, of course. Halloween comes to America mostly through the Scottish and Irish immigrants. They brought those traditions over here. It got a very big, well, maybe not a big jolt, but in 1820, Washington Irving's short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. If you've never seen the Johnny Depp movie, it was excellent. It's on that. But scholars, literary scholars say that that is one of the first distinctly American ghost stories centered around this day. And also, by the mid-1800s in America, autumn festivities were common, and the Irish fleeing the potato famine in the 1840s and early 50s, there was an influx of them, so that increased these celebrations of Samhain. And this is just my own personal observation, but in the late 1800s, early 1900s, spiritualism began to rise. It was a time of a lot of places in London and Victorian England and in America. People were attending seances to contact their deceased beloved. I don't know if any of you have heard of Lilydale in New York. I don't know if that was the first spiritualist community. Spiritualism is a religion, and their core belief is that we survive death, not as some cosmic light, but that Rick de Yampert in his essence is going to be Rick de Yampert in the afterlife, and that we can communicate with the spirits of our deceased beloveds. So there was a huge rise in spiritualism in the 1890s, seance being held everywhere, At some point, the people in Lilydale came south and founded Casadega, which is our own very world-famous spiritualist community. Personal note, my girlfriend Michelle is a psychic intuitive. She has amazed me with some of her visions. Maybe that will be a whole program someday. And for us modern pagans, we celebrate Samhain. And I love the holiday. It's kind of like Christmas for some folks. It has its very serious, solemn side. And then there will be guys like dressed up in jester hats talking about death. So it has its frivolous side and its solemn side. And isn't that life, really? I wanted to quote Khalil Gibran, who wrote The Prophet. He was a Lebanese-American poet. And in his book, The Prophet, he has a segment on death. But for me, it's his segment on joy and sorrow that is especially, I think, very meaningful, especially at this time of year. Our beloveds could live to be 500 years and be with us. And the day that they leave this world, it just hurts. It's hard. It's hard. We wish they remain with us in spirit, but of course, we miss them terribly. Now here's Khalil Gibran. When you are joyous, look deep into your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth, you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you say joy is greater than sorrow, and others say, nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep upon your bed. And I think that plays out in most of our lives. A lot of you know my story. My wife Cheryl passed away. We had 23 wonderful years together. In 2015, the breast cancer got her. And of course, I was blessed that she died in my arms. That doesn't mean it wasn't traumatic, but it was a blessing that I was there. And yes, I grieved and grieved deeply, and did not think that love would ever come again. And then 5 years ago, this wonderful, beautiful woman named Michelle, who's very keyed into the spirit side of life, so joy and sorrow playing out right there. I wanted to say something about the modern pagan tradition. Well, it's an old tradition of the silent supper or the dumb supper. We're not having a dumb supper. I prefer the term silent supper. That's not what we'll be doing today, but its core essence is the same. And in this tradition, some scholars say it goes back to the Middle Ages, when there would be a ritualistic dinner eaten in silence with a single place setting that remained empty. And the focus of the ritual was you are eating in silence, you are, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say imagination, but you open your heart and your soul and your mind to the belief that your beloved will be sitting down at that table in that chair and sharing that time with you. And that's how this is going to be a similar remembrance. Mara Freeman, who's an Irish woman, she wrote a wonderful book on Celtic spirituality. I read in it every week. It takes us through the wheel of the year. She has a very wonderful section on imagination. And we, modern adults, we tend to see imagination as something of the child realms. But I should have copied her words. But imagination is a portal to spirit, and we imagine things, these days, oh, you're just imagining that, little boy, go away, you're imagining there's something under the bed. But imagination is how we leap out of this reality into alternate realities. Driving down here, this came into my mind. Remember that song from the 60s, One-Eyed, One-Wing, Flying Purple, People Eater? Where in the hell did that song come from? Somebody imagined it, it sprang from their consciousness, but yet it came from somewhere. So when we think about our beloveds, our deceased beloveds being here, Cheryl crosses my mind every day. There are little things that remind me of her. I'm playing the drum that she gifted me. It's my first drum ever. So I call that my spirit drum. But if I really get inside and open my heart and really think and caress her spirit, that alters my reality for a time. And I think all of us can do that too with this remembrance today. One final word, all the silly Halloween movies, the horror movies, death scares the hell out of us. It does, it just does. But I'm reminded, and I can't remember where I read this, there was an Irishman who was asked if he was afraid of ghosts. And I love this, his reply was, well, I'm going to try an Irish accent. That's my ancestors. I'm not so good at it. Why should I be glad? That's the spirit of my ancestors buzzing around me like bees. So I love that. And I will share one final thought. 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. I had to whiz. I'm an old guy. It's a nightly thing. Anyway, I think I've shared this with y'all. I felt a presence in my hallway. And this was when a year or two after Cheryl had died. And I wasn't scared, but it was kind of unnerving, and I kind of did the side eye in the ambient light down the hallway, and it felt like something was there. And I had to get up later, same thing. And then 2 days later, it was actually the Day of the Dead. I was taking my regular sunset walk around the neighborhood, and I came across a couple of neighbors, a married couple, and the wife said, just out of the blue, she said, "Rick, did you see something in your hallway the other night?" And I hadn't even brought it up. And I said, and I could just kind of stammer, "Yeah." And she said, "I don't tell a lot of people this, but I'm psychic." And they knew Cheryl. She said, "That was Cheryl. And Cheryl is with you right now." And so that was a very meaningful and beautiful time, because it was totally outside of my, this gray matter in here, where it seemed to be, quote unquote, confirmation that there's something beyond this life. And Michelle has introduced a number of moments like that, which is very much a blessing. So think about that Irishman. If we ever get kind of spooked, it's like, those are the spirits of our ancestors buzzing around us like bees, letting us know that they love us and we are filled with gratitude for their presence. Thank you all.